True wisdom leads to the end of suffering, and the easiest, most powerful way to cultivate it is by listening to profound teachings that reveal the truth of non-self. In this clip, we'll explore this supreme method and how it guides us toward awakening and ultimate freedom. Let's begin. Today is Friday, March 29th, 2024. Today I will present the core teachings of Buddhism focused on the path to enlightenment, Nibbana, in this life. It's about nurturing wisdom in the mind. Many lack wisdom, and there are 5 methods to cultivate it, which will lead to enlightenment. The first method is listening to wisdom teachings, a direct path to cultivating understanding within the mind. This is especially powerful when the teacher speaks to the essence, pointing directly to the nature of consciousness and the truth of non-self. When they clearly explain how all phenomena lack an inherent self, guiding the mind to awaken to this inner truth with precise detail, the listener can naturally follow along until deep insight dawns. This can lead to sudden breakthrough realizations. This first method is considered supreme. Such teachers are known for their ability to convey wisdom with both subtlety and directness, pointing straight to the mind without meandering. The second method is teaching the Dhamma. This involves sharing the teachings with others while simultaneously deepening one's own understanding. Those who teach must already possess significant wisdom, focusing solely on the mind and the truth of non-self, pointing directly to the mind. The more one explains the Dhamma, the more profound their understanding of it becomes. The third method is yoniso, teaching and reminding oneself. This involves guiding and instructing the mind, recognizing that our mind is a servant of awareness. At this moment, it is aware of this sound. This sound is a mental formation. Images or emotions are also mental formations. As we observe them, we understand them, recognizing their impermanence. These conditioned phenomena lack any true self. They arise naturally and dissolve back into nothingness from which they came. When we look deeply, we see that even the sound we are speaking has no form. It arises from nothing and dissolves back into nothingness. This is the nature of phenomena, and awareness continues to observe them in this way. By teaching and reminding ourselves, we guard against clinging to any conditioned phenomena. Whatever arises, we simply know it and let it pass. The very moment of knowing is the present, and it instantly becomes the past. There is no need to fabricate further, as doing so would only engage with the past. Instead, we remain in the awareness of the present moment, constantly fresh and immediate. This practice of teaching and reminding oneself in this way keeps the mind grounded in the present, observing and understanding without attachment. This is what it means to teach oneself, to remind oneself, and to remain aware. The fourth method involves speaking aloud to yourself, a practice that emerges when silent inner dialogue proves insufficient due to mental restlessness. Through vocal affirmations, we remind ourselves to maintain inner awareness. In these moments of awareness, the mind becomes centered in its natural state, separating itself from mental formations. These thoughts and emotions that arise are not who we are. They are simply phenomena to be observed. As we speak and observe, we recognize that both the thoughts and the awareness of them are natural processes, not a self. It is simply nature observing nature, allowing for the revelation that nothing possesses an inherent self. These natural processes belong to no one. When we speak aloud in this way, affirming with clarity, for example, "Let the Buddha bear witness. I commit to listening deeply to wisdom, maintaining awareness of mind, observing thoughts and emotions. Even this act of knowing is a natural process, not a self, not mine. I will not cling to any condition. I will not be reborn. This life will be my last. Upon realizing the truth, I will share this wisdom with others worldwide, helping them awaken to inner awareness, see the harm in thoughts and emotions. Once they see this clearly while maintaining inner awareness, enlightened consciousness will emerge. The fifth method is for those who are extremely restless and unable to cultivate insight. Such individuals may need to find a quiet and secluded place to regain focus. In this stillness, they can stay with a simple meditative anchor, such as a mantra, an awareness of the body's movements, or the act of observing thoughts and mental images. By dwelling in solitude and maintaining awareness of just one thing, the mind becomes less scattered. This approach is particularly suitable for those with little wisdom or those preoccupied with worldly matters. They may need to first calm their agitation by seeking tranquility. Once the mind gains strength and is no longer restless, they can return to listening to the Dhamma and cultivating wisdom further. This is simply a way of replenishing the mind's clarity and understanding. It is a natural process. What is important is to grasp the core principle, the reason why our minds remain trapped in the cycle of existence, samsara. This is a fundamental and simple question we must continually ask ourselves. By identifying the root cause of this entanglement, we can address the problem at its source. Remember, this is the essential starting point for true liberation. What's the root cause of the mind's entanglement in samsara? Consider this analogy. There is a large tree, and the goal is to make it disappear completely, so it will never grow back. How should we proceed? People all over the world suggest different ideas. Some say, pluck the leaves. If the tree has no leaves, it will die. So they dedicate themselves to plucking leaves every day. However, as they pluck the leaves on one side, new leaves sprout on the other. They repeat this endlessly, pluck one side, and the other side grows back. This is an example of addressing the symptoms rather than the root cause. In this world, much of the Dhamma taught is superficial, addressing only surface-level issues while neglecting the essence. Every teaching seems to focus on secondary matters, not the core truth. Plucking leaves, as some suggest, may seem like a solution, but the traditional wisdom says otherwise. Plucking leaves alone will never kill the tree. The second group suggests that plucking leaves is insufficient and decides to cut the smaller branches instead, reasoning that the leaves grow from these branches. They proceed to remove all the smaller branches that hold the leaves. Yet, this approach also fails to grasp the essence. It remains focused on external methods and lacks the wisdom to address the root cause of the problem. Another group proposes cutting the larger branches. They believe this will solve the issue more effectively. However, as one large branch is cut, new ones begin to grow in its place. This cycle of cutting and regrowth continues, consuming a great deal of time and effort. Despite their persistence, this approach remains a lengthy and inefficient path to eliminating the tree. The next approach, thought to be more advanced, involves cutting down the entire tree. People praise this as a more sophisticated method. Yet even when they manage to cut down the main trunk, which takes considerable time and effort due to its size, after leaving it for a while, new shoots emerge. Multiple new trees grow from the stump, creating even more complexity than before. This struggle with cutting down the trunk represents another approach that many in our world still use. The wisest approach is to address the root directly by uprooting the tree completely. This method resolves the problem at its source and is the most effective. Some, with exceptional wisdom, go further by applying a solution directly to the soil around the tree. This causes all the roots to decay, eliminating the entire tree effortlessly. Such individuals with profound insight tackle the problem at its origin, avoiding unnecessary effort while achieving a complete resolution. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise from causes, and the cessation of suffering must be addressed at its cause. We do not need to engage with suffering itself. However, those lacking wisdom become entangled in suffering, seeking ways to manage it, eliminate it, or fight against it. The Buddha, possessing great wisdom, taught simple, clear teachings. When explained properly, people could understand and realize enlightenment quickly, seeing the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. They are not us nor ours, and they do not possess any true inherent existence. The cause of our mind's entanglement in the cycle of existence is ignorance, not knowing, the lack of true understanding. The teaching points directly to this ignorance, showing that when we awaken within through satipatthana, mindfulness grounded in the present, ignorance begins to dissolve. Ignorance is extinguished by awakening. To not know is to simply come to know. When the mind awakens and observes fabrications, it no longer clings to them. It sees that these fabrications are ownerless and simply part of nature. By neither flowing along with them nor grasping at them, suffering ceases. This leads to liberation and clear understanding. The practice is as simple as that. When we understand that all phenomena arise from causes, we recognize the need to address the root cause. Why are we trapped in the cycle of a samsara? This is a simple question, but we must trace the cause to its origin. It is like facing a problem at home where rats have entered. If we focus only on catching the rats, it will take an enormous amount of time, and the problem will persist. Instead, we must first find the cause of their entry. Why are the rats coming into the house? Perhaps there is a hole allowing them to enter, isn't that right? Simply catching rats will never end the issue, as more will keep coming. Once we discover how they are getting in, the next step is to investigate why they are attracted to our home. Is there food or leftovers scattered around? If there were no food, the rats likely wouldn't come. By identifying and addressing these causes, we resolve the problem effectively. The same applies to our phones. If our phones frequently freeze or malfunction, we need to identify the root cause. First, we should check if the memory is full. We might need to delete some applications. Second, we should check if the phone has a virus by running a virus scan. Third, we should examine whether there are too many applications or if we have visited risky websites. It could also be that the phone hasn't been updated or cleaned in a long time. By identifying the root cause of the issue, we can find a solution. If we don't determine the cause, we won't be able to resolve the problem. But if we do find it, we can put an end to it quickly and effectively. Why do we suffer? Why are we stuck in the cycle of rebirth? This is a simple question that encourages us to ask ourselves about the true root causes of our suffering and the endless cycle of rebirth. We should focus on the root causes, not the symptoms or intermediate factors. Those who are wise will address the root of the problem, while those who lack wisdom will only tackle the symptoms. They might say they are suffering and ask how to escape suffering, thus trying to manage the pain. Suppose we are someone who often feels irritable, quick-tempered, and easily upset. We might say, I suffer so much from my frustration and anger. It rises quickly and ruins my mood. Others may feel overwhelmed by financial debt, asking, "What should I do?" The question is, what is the root cause of these issues? Those lacking wisdom often address only the symptoms, tackling the surface problems without examining the deeper cause. This approach only provides temporary relief and never resolves the suffering at its source. Suppose we are suffering greatly from physical ailments, various illnesses, intense stress, and financial hardship. What should we do? Most people seek quick money, sometimes through illegal means, selling drugs, robbery, or theft. Others, when deeply troubled, try to find release through entertainment, drinking, or drug use. Are these truly solutions to the problem? Some people, overwhelmed by suffering, decide to attend a meditation retreat, thinking that being in such a place will free them from their pain. They make the journey, spend a lot of money they don't really have, and even borrow funds to cover the costs. They enter the course where they are instructed to walk, sit, observe, and follow specific practices. When we leave home to stay at a retreat, living in a new place, meeting new people, and experiencing a different environment, it feels fresh and novel. For a week, we might forget our old worries and feel a temporary relief. But once we return home, we find ourselves back in the same house, with the same family, and the same life circumstances. Gradually, the feelings of depression, stress, and suffering resurface. What do? We plan to go back again, but to go back, we need money, so we work hard to earn it, feeling stressed in the process. The cycle continues, earning money, feeling overwhelmed, attending another retreat, and returning home, only to find nothing has really changed. The same problems remain, and we feel frustrated thinking, what should I do? Life is so exhausting and full of suffering. What we may not realize is that this suffering is fueled by our thoughts. We are caught up in mental fabrications, constantly spinning stories in our minds without even noticing it. Whether sitting, lying down, or working, our minds are endlessly churning. We go to retreat after retreat, but when we come back, everything remains the same. Nothing truly changes. Isn't that the case? We do everything to earn money, making money our refuge, believing that if we have enough, we won't suffer. Is this belief correct? When we finally have a lot of money and no longer feel the same struggles, what do? Do we turn to study and practice the Dhamma? No, we don't. We don't practice, don't care, and don't even visit temples. We don't concern ourselves with the practice that leads to liberation, to the path, fruition, and nibbana. Why? Because we have money. When we are wealthy, comfortable, and secure, we lose interest. If someone says, let's make a resolution to end the cycle of birth and death, to make this life our last, how do we react? We dismiss it, thinking, I'm already comfortable. Why should I bother with this? It's superstitious nonsense. Isn't that true? When we have money, we think we are free from suffering. But when we lack money, we feel overwhelmed by stress and caught up in countless problems. This is the human condition, always addressing the surface, never truly understanding the root cause. Only a small number of people in the world, let's say 10%, are truly interested in studying and practicing wisdom to find permanent freedom from suffering. The challenge is they haven't found the root cause yet. The issue, however, lies in not understanding the root cause. When suffering arises, how do we deal with it? If we fall seriously ill, what do? We see a doctor. If one doctor can't cure us, we look for another, then another, constantly seeking relief externally. Some people suffer from stress, depression, or overwhelming debt, and again, they turn to external solutions. They attempt to fix their suffering from the outside, just as in the examples given before. Occasionally, some are fortunate and achieve success or wealth. But does that solve the real issue? In the end, many ignore the path to freedom from suffering and the ultimate truth. Some are fortunate, while others are not. Those less fortunate experience continual loss. Whatever they invest in fails, leading to overwhelming debt and immense suffering. The harder they work, the more they suffer, and the deeper their debts grow. Eventually, some harm themselves or their families. This is the nature of those lacking wisdom. All of us in this world remain trapped in the cycle of a samsara because we lack wisdom. If our minds were illuminated by wisdom, they would not continue to be reborn. Remember, only wisdom can free us from suffering. This wisdom already exists within our minds, but it requires awakening. We must identify the root cause of suffering. What is the cause? Suffering arises from ignorance, not knowing, the absence of true understanding. When the mind is governed by ignorance, it becomes the condition for mental fabrications, citta sankhara. These mental fabrications are the natural processes of the mind. The mind can be compared to water. Just as water inherently produces waves, the mind inherently produces mental formations. This is its nature. Mental fabrications include thoughts, emotions, and other conditioned phenomena. When the mind is influenced by ignorance, it continuously creates these fabrications, perpetuating the cycle of suffering. We rely on this mechanism, mental fabrications, through thoughts and emotions, to interpret and react to what impacts the mind. When something painful occurs, such as physical illness or bodily suffering, this impact reaches the mind and is recognized. Upon contact, it creates ripples of reaction, like waves in water. These ripples are the fabrications of the mind, its natural response to being touched by experiences. When there is intense pain, such as a severe stomachache, we begin to think, "Oh, this hurts so much." Do we realize we are thinking? The pain itself doesn't speak. It is merely a sensation arising for the mind to know. However, once the sensation touches the mind, it stirs thoughts. Why does this hurt so much? Why am I in pain so often? Could it be cancer? Or is it inflammation? Why is my stomach hurting like this? What if something serious happens to me? What will my family do? What about my children? I can't afford to be sick. Did I do something bad to deserve this? At this moment, do we realize that we are playing with thoughts and fabrications? The more we think, the more we suffer. The pain itself is one thing, but the mental elaboration multiplies the suffering. Thoughts and emotions are citta sankhara, mental fabrications, the ripples and conditioned movements of the mind. When the mind begins to fabricate, thoughts arise, followed by emotions, leading to stress. Instead of simply allowing the pain to appear and recognizing it as it is, going to the doctor, taking medicine, or seeking advice from someone we trust to address the issue, we complicate things. The moment something happens, we immediately start thinking, playing with those thoughts, unaware that we are engaged in mental fabrications. This is the condition of beings in the world. The root cause of all suffering is our tendency to cling to these fabrications, driven by ignorance. Imagine the body as part of nature, like a robot with a limited lifespan. It cannot last forever. Some robots may only function for 1 year or even just 2 or 3 months before breaking down into scraps. Others may last 20 years before stopping due to accidents or other causes. No matter the length of time, they all eventually cease to function, turning into lifeless scrap metal. This is the nature of the body, impermanent and without true ownership. All of this, we must understand, is temporary. Our minds, filled with ignorance, take residence in this robotic vessel we call the body. If we consider the body as a robot, the mind becomes entangled in and deceived by this fabricated world of conventions. From birth, we are taught and conditioned to navigate the language, norms, and systems of this robotic society, according to the conventions of our respective countries. This world of robots teaches us to pursue education, acquire skills, earn money, seek wealth, status, praise, and happiness. But when we experience happiness, we seldom think about liberation from suffering. Only when suffering intensifies do we cry, complain, and harbor anger, hatred, and resentment, leading to conflict and disharmony. This is the nature of this robotic society in the world we inhabit. This is what it means to be beings of the world. When the lifespan of this robotic body ends, the mind drifts on, searching for a new vessel. It may be born into a land-dwelling creature, a water creature, an underground creature, an aerial being, or even an existence beyond Earth. It might take on a gross physical form or a more subtle body, whatever form the conditions dictate. All of this is a fabrication, a convention. The mind temporarily resides in the forms of these robots, drawn to rebirth in this world of conventions with countless types of bodies. Why is this? Because the mind does not know. It is blinded by ignorance. The truth is, our minds are filled with ignorance, and it is this ignorance that perpetuates the cycle of attachment and rebirth. Our mind is inherently a pure element, pristine from the beginning. It is an immortal essence, clear and luminous. It creates mental formations, thought patterns, and emotions, simply as tools to learn from and interact with what it encounters. That's all. The mind creates these formations to understand what contacts it. But once it has created these thoughts and emotions, even the act of awareness itself is just another aspect of mind, a knowing element, a mode of knowing. When the mind creates these tools, let's call them formative elements, the pure original essence generates these conditional formations. These formations arise from the pure element and dissolve back into it. It is like the rippling of water. A ripple arises from the surface of the water, then dissolves back into its calm stillness. Another ripple forms, and again it merges back into the still water. The mind is just the same. It is a pure, luminous essence. The mental formations are like ripples, manifestations that arise from the mind. They are simply movements of this purity. Once they arise, they eventually return to the mind's original state, without form or substance, just a ripple, a temporary fluctuation. To explain in simple terms, these are ripples of emptiness. Using this analogy helps us understand. Some may say, "You are only teaching about emptiness. The Dhamma is not about emptiness." But true emptiness is not what we imagine. It is emptiness of emptiness itself. It is beyond human concepts and thoughts. This state transcends thinking and is called sunyata dhatu, the element of emptiness. The pure essence of the mind has never been born. In reality, we have never been born. What we are experiencing now is just a dream. It is like lying asleep, dreaming that we are human, endlessly wandering in the cycle of samsara. We have been dreaming for so long that no one has yet woken us. Those who awaken from this dream are called awakened beings. They realize the illusion and see that this dream world is not real. When one truly sees that this dream is nothing but a fabrication, awakening happens naturally. The mind awakens on its own, freeing itself from the illusion. When one truly reaches and understands the pure essence of the mind, tears may fall. How can we teach this to beings in the world? How can they possibly understand? The Dhamma is about nothingness. It points to the realization that our mind is an immaculate essence. It is pure, completely free of anything else, an eternal and radiant essence. It is extraordinary, the ultimate state where no suffering exists. It is beyond words, beyond comparison. Yet the world of conventions is a realm of fabrications. It is a fabricated disease, a distortion that has no true existence. Right now we are dreaming. It is as though we believe ourselves to be robots, operating and controlling these robotic bodies. We've programmed these robots to learn everything about this fabricated world and to send the information back to us. But in truth, we are not the robots. We are the pure, timeless essence observing this dream. When this is realized, the illusion dissolves, and the mind awakens to its natural, boundless purity. This is the realization that liberates. The Buddha taught that the five aggregates are not self. Simply put, they are this body and this mind. When we speak of body and mind, we can also call them physical and mental phenomena. The physical form exists because the mental aspect assigns it value. Otherwise, these physical forms do not truly exist on their own. They arise because the mind gives them significance. So, let us turn to the mind. Mental phenomena include thoughts and emotions. They are all part of the mind. Even consciousness itself, the awareness that perceives, is a mental phenomenon. To make it clearer, consider the sound you are hearing right now, the sound of my voice. This sound assigns meaning to everything. It uses human language, conventional terms, to define and label. But look at your own hand. Does it call itself a left hand or a right hand? Does it say it is skin, a pinky finger, or a nail? Observe closely. There is only pure awareness without language. This awareness is calm, clear, and pure, free from labels or concepts. It is an emptiness, a formlessness. This is what is called sunyata, the element of emptiness, empty even of emptiness itself. Take a closer look. There is a knowing that is calm and silent, a knowing beyond language, beyond the sense of self. It is a knowing without anyone to know it, without any self at all. When you search for this self, you won't find it. Whether you look for your hand or yourself, all that remains is pure awareness. But thoughts assign value and meaning. Thoughts declare, this is the left hand, this is the back of the hand, the palm, the pinky, the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, and the thumb. The sound speaks these words, but the hand itself does not. The sound says, this is a leg, or this is an arm. The body, however, does not proclaim, I am a leg, an arm. The body remains silent. Now try this. Imagine removing the mind from the body. Would the body say anything? Would it claim, I am a body, I am self? Without the mind, the mouth cannot speak, and the ears cannot hear. If someone insists this body is ours or yours, what part of it truly belongs to us or to you? Take the mind away and look again. What remains of the body? At first it becomes a lifeless corpse. With time, even the corpse ceases to be. It turns to dust, leaving nothing behind. So, where is the self? Where is this body that belongs to us. Without the mind, it is only emptiness, a formlessness that reveals the illusion of ownership and identity. When the mind resides within the body, it becomes aware of sound. Right now, as you hear my voice, simply be mindful of the sound, observe it. Notice that there is an awareness of the sound happening in this moment. Who is aware? Look closely, the mind knows on its own. Where is the sense of self in this knowing? The mind is aware because it is the element of knowing, the quality of knowing. As soon as the mind comes into contact with something, it immediately thinks, fabricates, and assigns value. This process of assigning meaning extends to everything. It is the nature of the mind to reach outward, to attach, to grasp. In doing so, the mind clings to thoughts, emotions, and concepts. It flows along with these thoughts, sinks into them, attaches to them, and suffers because of them. This suffering manifests as stress, anxiety, migraines, depression, arising because the mind is entangled in its fabrications. When the mind relies on conditioned mental formations, citta sankhara, it becomes lost in states of suffering. We are trapped in this cycle of suffering, this endless loop of mental fabrications. Even when the body breaks down and disintegrates, the mind continues to drift, along with the emotions and fabrications it clings to. This is the cycle of samsara, the endless whirl of attachments and suffering. To break free is to see the mind clearly, to stop clinging, and to return to its natural state of knowing without grasping. Fabrications driven by desire and craving led to emotions of pleasure and attachment, creating the illusion of joy. When these fabrications arise from dissatisfaction or unfulfilled desire, they result in emotions of suffering, dragging the mind into states of distress. The mind clings to these fabricated thoughts, endlessly entangled, caught up in pleasure, caught up in pain, without realizing that both pleasure and pain are simply mental fabrications. This ongoing attachment to thoughts and emotions stems from ignorance. This is why the Buddha taught that ignorance, not knowing, is the root cause of suffering. By relying on conditioned mental formations, citta sankhara, and immersing ourselves in the realm of suffering, we perpetuate our entrapment in the cycle of dissatisfaction. How can one escape suffering when everything bound by ignorance is inherently marked by suffering? Truth exists right here in this mind, not outside it. Why seek truth elsewhere? Why take the body to various places for practice, thinking there is something external to be gained? This happens because we still perceive ourselves as human, as beings tied to form, and believe that through external acts we can acquire something of value. In reality, you are pure consciousness. Guide the mind home to awakened awareness, for the mind doesn't know itself. Ignorance means not knowing. We must address the root cause. The root is ignorance. The solution is awakening. It's not about learning more teachings. After years of practice, if the path to liberation remains unclear, if doubt still lingers, perhaps you're looking in the wrong direction. Some people practice and believe they have realized the Dhamma, yet they still have questions. Those who continue to ask, despite claiming understanding, have only assumed they understand. If understanding is genuine, there would be no need for questions. Even if the Buddha himself were present, there would be nothing to ask. When one truly reaches the truth, the ultimate reality, one sees clearly that there is nothing. The purity of the mind remains, and only purity exists. Everything is entirely pure. But the mind, deluded by ignorance, simply does not know. This not knowing leads it to flow along with thoughts and fabrications, speaking yet unaware of sound, thinking yet unaware of thought. Emotions arise, yet one does not recognize them. The mind becomes immersed and entangled in these things. I often say that even the sound of my voice as I speak now is just a mere convention, a constructed language that has no inherent reality. They are not truly sound. There is no real speaker and no actual listener. Right now, there is only nature functioning by itself. There is nothing in us that can be called self. The five aggregates are clearly non-self, as the Buddha taught so explicitly. Right now, as you hear this sound, it knows by itself. It hears by itself. As you understand this language, it understands by itself. What is needed is frequent awakening awareness, because we are currently trapped in suffering, bound to the cycle of suffering, entangled in fabrications, playing endlessly with thoughts, day and night. Look at children. They are often under stress because they are constantly engaging with thoughts. They are told to read, memorize, and think continuously, having been taught from a young age to think, and think. But have parents ever taught their children to awaken? Has any family emphasized the importance of awakening? When we sink into, cling to, and are carried away by thoughts and emotions, that is the cycle of suffering. Let thoughts, emotions, and mental phenomena perform their natural functions. Be aware of them. Whatever arises, positive emotions, negative emotions, neutral states, or even states of concentration, observe them. Be aware of what they are, and then let them pass. When there is awareness, it is in the present moment. The moment you realize, I am thinking right now, you are already in the present. That's it. Complete. Don't continue thinking. The moment awareness arises, let it end there. Don't elaborate further or fabricate more, because that is playing with thoughts. The natural tendency of beings caught in the cycle of suffering is to immediately start thinking again as soon as awareness arises. This is the nature of beings lost in the cycle of suffering and fabrication. But for those with wisdom, who awaken within, they see it differently. They observe the nature of fabrication as it is naturally, without deliberate effort. It's simply one natural phenomenon observing another natural phenomenon. Awareness recognizes the fabrication for what it is. When you notice, oh, I am about to get angry, just knowing is enough. Say anger has already arisen in that flash of anger when you're about to act on it. The moment awareness returns, it ends right there. Very moment, it ends there. Awareness stops the cycle. Just that, know it and let it go. Awareness can arise at any moment at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. Whenever it arises, just let it be. Once awareness arises, let it go, and it dissolves on its own. All fabricated phenomena naturally appear and dissolve, that is their nature. But when they don't dissolve, it's because we continue thinking, clinging to the same story, sinking into it. This is what brings suffering. If we simply awaken inwardly, the mind will start to become familiar with this state of inner awakening. Previously, it was accustomed to flowing into thoughts, but once we grasp this principle, the mind begins to shift. Listen to the Dhamma often, and gradually you will awaken and realize the truth of reality in this very life. Make yourself like an empty cup, firm in your resolution, ready to receive, and listen deeply. Let yourself awaken inwardly. I speak of this repeatedly, so that this understanding takes root in your mind, until your mind fully awakens. Some people don't even know how to awaken yet. Some come and ask, "Teacher, I still feel anger. What should I do to stop being angry? I answer, well, anger is an emotion, isn't it? And emotions are mental fabrications, citta sankhara, aren't they? It's like throwing a stone into water. It creates ripples. But what is there to hold on to with those ripples? They eventually fade away. Do ripples have any true substance? Emotions, too, do they have any self or substance? Others ask, what should I do to stop desiring? I reply, does desire have a self or substance? Ask yourself that first. The Buddha taught that the five aggregates are non-self. They are not us. They do not belong to us. I am not teaching you to do anything specific. I am teaching you to see things as they are. I teach so that you develop wisdom, so you can understand the mind and recognize that the mind is inherently pure. It has never truly been born. But because we fabricate and cling to thoughts, this birth arises. The mind clings to mental fabrications because of ignorance, that's all. Recognize this, and wisdom will begin to awaken. I teach you to awaken inwardly. Right now, can you hear my voice? That awareness, your mind is knowing in this moment. Be mindful that it is knowing right now. But ask yourself, who is doing the knowing? Does it know by itself? Or is there someone claiming, I am the one who knows? Look closely. If you say, I am the one who knows, then this I will persist endlessly, year after year, clinging to thoughts. The Buddha taught that the five aggregates are not self. They are not us nor ours. So, where is this self? The teaching is crystal clear. If we simply accept this truth and remain aware, knowing that the five aggregates are not self, we can see that they hold no essence of self. They have no inherent existence. Let go and recognize that the sense of self is merely a fabrication. All you need to do is simply awaken. Just be aware inwardly. When a voice arises in your mind, be aware of it. Once you are aware, let it go. It's like noticing a thought and immediately kicking it away. This is just a metaphor. It's not about actually doing something physical, but about not engaging with the thought, not clinging to it, and not assuming it has any real substance. Understand this. It has no self, no true existence. It's just a passing phenomenon. Keep knowing and let it pass. Continue this until the mind becomes familiar with awakening. Once the mind gets used to awakening, it will naturally recognize thoughts with ease, seeing them clearly for what they are. I teach you to observe the workings of ignorance, which is the root of not knowing. When we awaken, ignorance dissolves. That's all I teach. I teach the cause of suffering. I teach the Dhamma at its root, not the way the world often teaches by addressing symptoms or surface-level issues. The Buddha emphasized this clearly. To end suffering, address its cause. All phenomena arise from causes. Therefore, focus on the root cause. Those with wisdom solve problems at their origin, and this brings resolution effortlessly. The wise, when they grasp even a small piece of the Dhamma, can realize the truth with ease. We are the mind. Those who awaken to observe the mind will no longer be reborn. They will no longer send the mind outward in search of external objects. Such individuals realize that this very mind is the source. It is the essence of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. This mind is the pure element, inherently pure. But it was simply unaware of its true nature. Now it knows. Atahiatano natho. Self is the refuge of self, meaning pure consciousness can rely on its own pure essence, no longer depending on mental formations. Ignorance, not knowing, was the cause that previously led to fabrication and reliance on these mental formations. But now the mind has awakened. It no longer depends on or clings to conditioned formations. The mind sees clearly that citta sankhara is non-self, without any essence or true existence. It is merely an illusion, a fabrication. Recognizing this, the awakened mind no longer relies on or is entangled by these formations. It rests in its true nature, pure, unconditioned, and free. I am merely a signpost pointing the way. I cannot guide your mind back home. A teacher's duty is just to tell, to point, like a signpost showing the shortest, most direct path. So there will be no delay, you don't waste time. My only wish is for all of you to be freed from suffering quickly because time passes, life is uncertain, and this body will not last long. Now that you've encountered the essence of the Dhamma, take this opportunity to see clearly. The 5 aggregates are anatta, non-self. This body and this mind are not you. Don't foolishly cling to them as self. This sound you hear, don't think of it as your sound. The mental images, the emotions, don't hold on to them as yours. These things have no self, no essence. When someone asks, how do I extinguish desire, or what should I do when I'm angry or frustrated? The answer is to realize that you are caught up in thoughts. Recognize it clearly. Awaken inwardly. Don't engage with thoughts or let them scatter your focus. Simply remain aware within. The mind is constantly thinking, from the moment you wake up in the morning until night. While eating, driving, working, or even resting, the mind keeps thinking. When you're happy, angry, or stressed, it keeps thinking. Be aware. Right now, I am thinking. That's enough. Keep returning to this awareness again and again. Suddenly you might think, I really want fried rice. Be aware of that thought as it arises. Then as you walk to buy the fried rice, know what the mind is thinking. Notice the inner voice speaking. Just observe it. Know it as it is. See clearly that it is the mind creating every story, fabricating everything. If you truly see that thoughts are the source of all fabrications, there may come a moment when tears fall. That is when you've found the path. Remember this, true understanding means the mind awakens to Buddhahood. It is not about thinking you understand. It's a deep awakening that arises from within. True understanding brings a profound clarity, a lightness of being, and tears of realization. You see with your whole heart that everything, absolutely everything, has no self. It is as if the body disintegrates, and the mind dissolves entirely. All knowledge, all constructs, break apart into pure essence, leaving only the pure element. There is no longer a sense of being human, yet life continues as before. But now you no longer foolishly cling to the idea of self. That's all. This awareness becomes continuous. It knows, moment by moment, that the mind does not arise. Doubt is completely eradicated. There are no more questions. Those who have realized the Dhamma do not send their minds outward, nor do they concern themselves with external matters. They speak only of what lies within, because the Dhamma resides within, not outside. Listen to teachings that guide you inward, awakening you to the inner truth. They speak only of the mind, the cessation of arising, the nature of non-self, and how the mind is inherently pure. The task is to bring the mind back home, preventing it from flowing with fabrications. Listen to these teachings often, and anyone regardless of gender, age, or status can realize the Dhamma and attain the truth, because everyone possesses a mind. Go forth and teach one another. Speak only of awakening. Do not waste time discussing fabricated thoughts. Focus solely on awakening inwardly, and this world will become a society of awakened beings. A nation of awakening will be filled with noble individuals. When you discuss only awakening, there will be no foolish clinging to thoughts. All stories, all narratives are merely fabrications. Know this and live in awakening. For this session, we conclude the talk here. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.